Hey, this is Mr. Ng going over your Math 5 factoring test version even. Taken September 8th, 2017. Multiple choice, carefully circle the best answer. Question number 1, true or false. Question number 2 has a greatest common factor. So I look down here, and I have 5x squared minus 40x. Remember, you can break those down into factors, so that would be 5 times x, and that would be 5 times 8 times x. And you'll notice that they have a 5 in common and an x in common. So that 5x is called your GCF. So the answer is yes, there is a greatest common factor. Question number 2. I've started the problem. 5x squared minus 40x equals 5x times what? Well, if you look at the above problem, if I take out the 5 and the x, the only thing I didn't underline there was an x and an 8. You have the minus sign there, so 5x times quantity x minus 8. X minus 8 goes in that parentheses. That would be choice A. 2 points apiece. It's just either right or wrong, not looking for your work there. Question number 3 says, factor the trinomial completely if the polynomial cannot be factored, write prime or circle prime. So here I have in standard form quadratics, your A value is 1, B value is 1, and your C value is -6. So I'm going to do this x, A times C. That's 1 times -6, which is -6, and your B value down here is 1. I need two numbers that will multiply to be -6, but add to be 1. Those two numbers are going to be 2 and 3. One of these has to be negative, so that'll be a -2. 3 times -2 is -6, but 3 plus -2 is a +1. Now I'm going to do this box. In your box, those will go right there in yellow. So I'm going to write -2x, add an x there, put an x. First term always goes in the top left box, so that'll be x squared. And then in the bottom right will be -6. Now here, you're thinking of two numbers or two expressions that multiply to be x squared. That'll be x times x. Another way of thinking about it is, what is the greatest common factor of this column? That'll be x. Greatest common factor of this one will be 3. Greatest common factor would be -2. And greatest common factor of this column will be +3. And you'll see that they also multiply to be those. So you're left with x minus 2 and x plus 3, and that'll be choice C. Question number 4, what are the factors of x squared minus 2x minus 24? Same thing. A is 1, B is -2, C is -24. A times C, B value. Two numbers that multiply. So let's just say you get stuck here, so you can just list out the values. 24 times 1. I put the bigger number on the left side. 12 times 2, 8 times 3, 6 times 4. And this gives you an idea, if you did subtract them, could you get that number? And I noticed the only one that has a difference of 2 is this one. So I'm going to put 6 and 4. It has to be -2, so this one will be -6. -6 times 4 is -24, and -6 plus 4 equals -2. I'm going to put this inside my box. And you realize you really only need the box for values that are A value is greater than 1, such as 2, 3, 4, 10. So I'm going to put those there. So -6x, and this will be 4x. And the top left, you will always put the A term, x squared, and then the last term always goes in the bottom right. And there you're just finding the greatest common factor. This direction is x, right? X times x is x squared. And x times something gives you 4x, that'll be +4, so you can multiply and get that. And something times +4 gives you -24, that'll be -6. So you have x plus 6 and x minus 6, and that is choice D. All right, number 5 looks a little tricky. X squared minus 4. Notice I put the little gap there. You can put a 0x. And you do the same thing. A is 1, B is 0, C is -4. A times C is -4. B value is 0. All right, anytime you have a 0 here, that means that these two numbers, when you add them, will be 0. So that's going to be a 2 and a negative 2. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4, but 2 plus negative 2 equals 0. Put it inside your box. These two values, put them here and here. So I'm going to have x squared, last term, negative 4. Here, this is splitting. Basically, this is 2x, and negative 2x splits the 0. And then there, I'm just going back and figuring out which ones. So that'll be x times x. This will be a negative 2, and this will be a positive 2. So your answer is x minus 2, x plus 2. Question number 6. Let's do my x in my box. So x box factoring is just one way of factoring. A times c, so that'll be 2 times 6 is 12, and your b value is 7. Two numbers that multiply to be 12 but add to be 7 are 3 and 4. So I've got those two, put them here. So that'll be 3x and 4x. Now pay attention here, this is the first time you've had in this test 2x squared is your first term, and then 6. Let's go ahead and factor that. Now, here's the hard part. One of these has to be a 2. Well, if you think about it, right here, the greatest common factor, 2 cannot go into 3, but 2 can go into 4. So I'm going to put in 2x, right? 2x is the GCF of that. And I put the x here. Because if you put the 2 up here, you might say, what's the difference? 2x times something equals 3x. That's difficult to find. 2 times a number equals 3. And that would be a fraction. So 2x times 2 and x times 3 gives you 3x, gives you 6. And so I have 2x plus 3 and x plus 2. That is choice D. The points at the bottom right, you got 2 points for writing first name and last name nice and neatly, and 1 point for circling the correct period. 6 multiple choice questions at 2 points apiece. That's 12. 3 plus 12 gives you 15 points for that side. Turn the page. If you did your X box here, you'll get 9 and 6, and those numbers are 3 and 3. And you'll notice that if your A value is equal to 1, then you only need to do this, and the two numbers that you find actually are here and here. Now, if you have a binomials that are exactly the same, you just write them x plus 3 to the power of 2. If you wrote them as x plus 3 and x plus 3, that's not simplified enough. I gave you 3 points. Question number 8. All right. Now, anytime they ask you to solve, you need to set this equal to 0. This is not equal to 0, so you're going to have to add 10 to both sides. You'll get x squared plus 7x plus 10. So this is in standard form of a quadratic. So your A value is positive 1, B value is 7, and your C value is 10. Common mistake is to think that your C value is negative 10. Notice how it's on the other side of the equation. The second mistake here was that some students wrote 1x squared or x squared. That's incorrect. These are the coefficients or numbers in front. Same thing here. You can't have 7x. It has to be a 7. 1 point for every correct blank. Letter B says to solve. So if I take what I have above, x squared plus 7x plus 10 equals 0, A times C is 10, your B value is 7. Two numbers that multiply to be 10 are A times C, and your B value is, these two numbers will add. So because my A value is equal to 1, you can put them in right away. Don't have to do the box. And then here, you're going to do the zero product rule. So anytime you solve, a lot of students may have stopped right there. That would be a 3 out of 4 points. The next thing you do is set them equal to 0. And when you do that problem there, you're going to get x equals -2 and x equals -5. So those are our solutions right there. So if you just factored, you got 3 points. Question number 9 wants you to factor completely. There's only 2 terms there. And the very first thing you should always be doing is thinking about a GCF. I have a 6 and a 15, so let's break it up. So 6x squared can be written as 2 times 3 times x times x. And 15x can be 5 times 3 times x. And whatever they do have in common, you can just put on the outside. So I have a pair of 3s. Now pay attention, you're just writing 1, 3. I'll explain in a second. And then here you only have 1x. So you essentially have 3 times x is your GCF. Then what you did not highlight, you have 2 and an x right there. And then you have this 5, which has a minus sign. And this is your answer, 3x times 2x minus 5. You'll notice here it's not a power of 2, it's not a trinomial, so you can't factor it to be binomials. Okay, so the partial credit for this problem is out of 4 points, I gave you 3 if you found a GCF other than 3x, such as you just saw the x there. And then I gave you 2 points if you just found a common factor. Like you just wrote like something like x. Like x, 6x minus 15 or something like that. And the last question. This one says to factor completely. So notice it has a power of 3. Now if you break this up, which I'll show you right now, 3x to the third, 5x squared, and 2x. You'll notice that what they have in common is an x. So your GCF there is an x. And what you didn't highlight, 3x squared, 5x, and 2, and then put back the math operations. So I have x times all of that, which is right here. If you got that far, I gave you 2 points. And if you got the rest of it wrong, or you just stopped right there, to get to this next step here, you're going to have to take what's inside the parentheses to get your a, b, and c. So your a value is 2, b value is -5, so -5 for your b value, c is 2, so a times c is 6. 2 numbers that multiply to be 6 are -2 and -3, and those 2 will also add to be -5. Remember, you take, when your a value is greater than 1, put it into your box. And if you don't know when to use the box, just keep using x in the box and you'll get it. So inside the parentheses, I have 3x squared is my first term, and the last term is 2. X times 3x is going to give me a 3x squared. Remember, you have to look ahead and determine where you're going to put the 3, and the 3 is going to be where you see a multiple of 3. The GCF here is a -2, so x times -2 is -2x, 3x times x, 3x squared, 3x times -1 is -3x, -1 times, I think that's a 2, gives me positive 2. And so these will become my factors, and that's my answer there, squared. Okay? So you have 4 free response questions at 4 points apiece. That's 16 plus those 3 blanks. So 16 plus 3 is 19. And then you just take your page and turn it, and you just add those 2 values together. That'll be your score. Double check for me, and you get 34 points. I hope these corrections were helpful for you.